Hi everyone, this video is an update to a video I did about 2 years ago on Exchange Online Protection. Since then it's been renamed to Defender for Office 365 Plan 1 and Plan 2. So I'm going to do two things here in this video. The first is a quick start. So this is like how to get set up in like 2 minutes and be off and running with Exchange, the online protection. I still want to call it the old name. And then I'm going to slow down, scroll back, and then talk about licensing just a little bit. And then do a little bit more detail walkthrough. Not a super detail. I want to make this quick. But enough to get you going in the right direction so you can set it up and you understand what the major moving parts are when it comes to Exchange Online Protection or Defender for Office 365 Plan 1 and Plan 2. So here we go. I'm going to switch over to screen 1 here. This is the quick version. So what you want to do is go to security.microsoft.com, go down to the email and collaboration section and find policies and rules. For some of you, depending on your licensing level, this may just say policies, but we're going to go into threat policies. Go to preset security policies, and yes, use them. They are a great way to start if you don't know this environment very well, and enable standard protection. And then I won't go through the managed protection settings right now. I'll come back to that in the extended version here in just a few minutes. And then once that's done, go back to your threat policies up here in the breadcrumbs, scroll down to quarantine policies, and check this box for a notification enable policy and edit it, okay? And then go through this wizard. This turns on the notifications that users will receive at the end of every day for anything that happens to be quarantined. And I'll show you where quarantine stuff is in the extended version here in a few minutes. But set this to specific areas, enable all the things that you want to enable, next, enable, next, and submit. Okay, done. There you go. You're all set. Now you can stop the video. No, just kidding. I'm going to show you the extended version now, but that's the quick and dirty of how to really set up Exchange Online Protection. So now let's slow down a little bit and talk about licensing real quick. I'm going to go excuse me, over here to the licensing section. This particular tenant's a live tenant. It has Microsoft. You'll see the licenses in here. Microsoft 365 E5. I got some basic licenses in here, and you'll see also Defender for Office 365 Plan 1 in here, and I should have Plan 2 in here. Something I need to add. We just added the E5 licenses a little while ago. But the point being is that an E5 license comes with everything, meaning there's all these tenant-wide things that get activated. For example, Azure Active Directory Premium 2, Defender for Identity, self-service password reset, conditional access policies. All of those things come to life when you put that license in here. But when they do come to life, you need to make sure that everyone's licensed for the same level. So these basic users that are here would need Defender for Office 365 Plan 2 to be properly licensed. So I would need to go add a Plan 2 license and assign it to these users. I would also need to get Azure Active Directory Premium 2 if I'm using the Defender for Identity functionality, so on and so on and so on. So just want to note that when you activate a higher level license in your environment, you activate these tenant-wide things. For those lower level licensed users, they have to have be licensed for the same things that would be in the higher license that are tenant-wide. So that's the preface for all of this. So now let me go back over to the security area here, and I'll go back to the home screen. You can see this tenant is a security score of 85.09. That's a very high score. For most organizations, 70 is a really good score. I like organizations to be at 70. This is license adjusted, meaning Microsoft sets your score based on what you're licensed for. And the most organizations that we walk into that I see, are in like 20 or in the high teens when they start, and they haven't implemented a bunch of the major functionality like multi-factor authentication and things like that. So that's a good kind of a benchmark to watch on, and then you can see how to improve your score down here. We're not going to go through some of these other Defender things, but we're going to come back over to email. We're going to go back into policy rules, and we're going to come over here to threat policies. So I'm going to go back into preset. I'm going to walk you through the wizard here so you can see what it looks like. This is super easy. Just a couple of little steps here. Most organizations are going to pick all recipients. They'll go next. Defender for Office 365 protection. Notice the first one, if I go back here, this is for Exchange Online protection. And the next one is for Office 365. So you get a combination of things at this particular licensing level where you get not only the email protection, but you also get protection for like safe links, safe attachments, and that's the Defender for Office part of it, Office 365 part of it that you get, because those features are actually integrated into your Office applications. Like when you go to open a Word document, it actually checks it for a virus at the time you open it. Same thing within Teams. These things are integrated within the environment. So if someone uploads, let's say an external guest uploads a document into a shared Teams space, that document is antivirus checked because you're licensed for Defender for Office 365. So this is more than just email protection. This is full-blown document protection also in the common storage areas that you find in the cloud in Microsoft's environment. So that's what that's for. Impersonation protection, spoofing is another way to put it, preventing spoofing. This has the 3 extra steps in here, and they don't show them here. When you click next, they show up. There they are. Email address to flag for impersonated attackers, protecting custom domains, and then trusted senders. What you're going to do, and when it comes to email protection, what I see organizations do a lot is, some executive will get a spam and they'll go, I don't want to see that thing because it had something, not very nice in it, or something graphic in it, right, that they didn't want to really see, and they want that email blocked. Well, those emails are randomly generated. Yeah, you can go throw it in just to kind of check the box, but it's not really going to do you any good. Because spam obviously in malware it's a cat and mouse game out there. They're all at once trying to always get ahead of the other, and so doing blocks for specific email addresses or specific domains typically isn't going to do you too good. Most of the time, you're just going to be fine-tuning your spam protections because Microsoft receives, trillions of emails a day, through their system. And from an AI perspective, they pick up most everything. Yes, stuff is always going to get through because it's a cat and mouse game. And yes, it's going to go in surges, but don't worry too much about the blocking aspect of it, because that's really not going to do you a whole bunch of good. Because especially if you do like I'll see organizations do message trace. I'm not message trace. Mail flow rules where they'll allow a specific domain to come through, like a trusted domain, like you work with this other company and you want those messages to come through all the time and not be, filtered. Well, that's good and bad. Yeah, it's going to guarantee the messages are going to get through, which is good. The bad thing is if someone on the other side, that company that you quote trust, an individual over there gets compromised and they start throwing over compromised messages, meaning compromised attachments, malware, it's going to go right past your filters. So it's good and bad to trust certain domains, but you just have to be very, very careful because sometimes you open the door to things you didn't expect. So that's the kind of trusters and the senders domain thing you got to be careful with. And that's it. You confirm, you're done, and you're configured. The same thing applies for strict protection. There's higher level things that you get with strict. It's a little bit more aggressive, I'll call it, when it comes to the protections. So let's go back to threat policies. Configuration analyzer is really the next thing. It compares the standard and strict, which we just looked at, settings, the Microsoft kind of quote best practices according to Microsoft, and it compares it against your current settings that you have in the environment. But then there's this cool thing called configuration drift, which is really nice, especially when you have multiple people that have access to administrate your Exchange environment and your rules. This will show you what's changed in the last period of time. And I think you can go back a couple of months. And this is very helpful, especially when something new is kind of weird going on and you want to come in and see if anyone changed anything. This is where you would go to do that. It's a really nice feature that Microsoft added. So back to threat policies. Anti-spam, anti-malware, those are the ones you always get, right? Microsoft also added anti-phishing at the very basic level of protection because so many people were getting the fish. They at least threw some free anti-phishing in to the mix. The anti-spam, again, very, very simple. When we come in here, you're going to see the default standard policy that's there. And then you've got some of these other default policies that are here that are lower priority. So priority is from high to low, meaning that if something's set up here, it has the biggest priority in the system and it takes precedent. So if you really want control, that granular control, you're not going to use those standard CAN policies. You're going to come in here and tweak the policies to be exactly what you want them to be, very granular. But always start with those standard presets as a baseline to compare with, and then you can use the configuration analyzer to compare your settings against their settings, and it's really nice. Another thing I'll mention is the outbound spam settings. Some organizations do send large amounts of email out from Microsoft, and they will hit thresholds. Microsoft has a document on what the thresholds are. And, you can go look at that and see because, sometimes you'll have a form online with SharePoint and it's, sending messages a lot or whatever it might be. And sometimes they'll get caught in here. And so you can come in here and adjust your thresholds in here for outbound spam because Microsoft does look at those things. Malware. Again, nothing special here. There's the standard security policy that's here. Here's the default one. The one thing that I recommend, and I'll come down here and edit these protection policies, is Microsoft has these default types in here and enable comment attachment filter. And then if it's these types, quarantine the filter. Before, Microsoft used to have just a few of these. Now they've opened that list and pretty much do it all right now, which is really nice. And then the message goes to quarantine because you don't want things like executables and those types of things coming through your email that, this is where bad things can happen. They enable 0-hour protections in here. And then you got some notification policies in here. So these are all custom policies that you can do. If these policies are stronger than the standard, the strongest policy always takes precedence. And then there's policy priority also. Let's see. Let's talk about anti-phishing real quick. This comes in a couple different flavors. There's a lower level at the 365 Plan 1 and Plan 2 is a higher level, and there's some adjustments here. I'm not going to go through here, but I will mention that when it comes to allowing things through or things that get filtered, you'll typically find more things get caught by the phishing filter than they do by the spam filter. And this is where you're going to need to really make adjustments is in the domains that you're going to allow through or I'll say to bypass the phishing filter. They'll still get picked up by the other filters, but the phishing filter, you're going to say, yeah, go ahead and let that one through, but still check it for everything else versus, like I said, a Mailflow rule, which is just bypass everything. So there's that component to it. And I won't go too much deeper in there, but wander around. There's good documentation in all of this. The safe attachments and safe links. So what these do, safe attachments, email comes in, has an attachment on it. Before the message hits the inbox, it takes that attachment, throws it over to the sandbox, opens it up, we call it blows it up, and checks to see if it's a virus. If it's good, it puts it back on, lets that email to go on through. If it's bad, then you have choices of what you want to do, what you want that to do. So the standard policy, obviously, I can't modify this or anything like that, but you can go see what the presets are. But if I click on one of these other ones and edit the settings in here, you can see that I've got this set to block. You have different choices: block, replace, and dynamic delivery. And a lot of organizations will start with dynamic delivery. They think, oh, let the message come through, let the user see it, and then the attachments won't come all the way through, but they'll come into a preview mode where if it looks good to Microsoft, they'll allow you to preview it, and then when they're done scanning it, they'll allow it through. Problem with that is you'll get user complaints. It's like, hey, I'm trying to get this message, and I just hate the delay of not being able to open those attachments instantly. Well, if you use replace, what it will do is replace or block. The message won't show up into the mailbox until Microsoft's done with it, which is, I think, personally better because you're not going to get those user complaints because they're not going to notice the extra 10 seconds it took, and it's normally less than that for that attachment to be checked. And then they'll get the message, if it's good. Replace will strip the attachment off and let the message body come through and put a text file and saying, hey, we took off this bad file. And again, you can get user complaints with that. And if the attachment is infected, typically the email is not a good thing either. So what I tell organizations is just to use block. It blocks the message, doesn't allow it to come through, and you're done. The user never knew it happened. It just did it all on its own. So that's where why I recommend block, because it takes out kind of that user dynamic of it. You can enable redirect and send messages to attachments to a particular mailbox. Again, a little bit dangerous, but the protections are still there. So if you want to not strip off those attachments, you can. Like if you're testing it and you want to really see what it does, you can enable this, throw them over to just kind of a generic mailbox that no one really has access to, and you can go log into that when you want to and check and see what it's going over there. So there's that. And then safe links, again, very, very similar in nature. Oh, let me go back. I'm sorry. Let me go back to safe attachments. Global settings. I forgot to mention this. These are global settings for this feature that are tied to, as it states here, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. So this is those safe, or I'll call it antivirus, really, for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams that Microsoft has built in to this level of licensing. And so it protects files within your storage accounts also, which is really, really, really nice to protect malware from coming in. And then this one for documents. So this is at the document level, meaning Word, Excel, and all that. When you go to open a file, it integrates antivirus with your desktop applications. Really, really, really cool feature that Microsoft adds into there. So let me go back over here now to safe links. Again, a global settings, but this global settings just is a lot of the ones, the ones that you want to specifically block. Yeah, okay. But then you got the presets, and then if I click on safe links and hit edit here, edit protection settings, you can kind of see here's some of the defaults that are there. You can read through these, check out what you want to. But again, as an email comes in, a link is checked. Basically, Microsoft opens it up in a sandbox to see if it's malicious or not, and then allows it to come through. Now, safe links is really a cool feature because it's not just at the time the email comes through. And safe attachments is the same way. It's ongoing, meaning if later on a link becomes bad or an attachment becomes bad, these things are checked in real time. So it's really slick in that. And again, you have Teams integration and Office apps integration. So if there's a link in an app or a link in a team, those things are checked in real time, not just the first time. They're constantly looked at. So there's how that one works. So that's going through all of those. Then you got tenant-wide allow and block lists. That's pretty obvious what those are. Again, be careful of what you allow for tenant-wide. And then quarantine policies, this is where that notification policy is that I talked about earlier, and setting that up. This section down here is by default is 3 days. 1 day is what we set it to. Microsoft has a feature coming that's going to allow you to do this in hours, so that instead of at the end of a person's day, they get their quarantine message and it's like too late. It's like I've been waiting for this message and it got caught by quarantine accidentally for whatever reason. You'll be able to set this to every 2 hours, every 4 hours, which will be a really nice feature when Microsoft releases it. Then that's really it here. Now, there's one other setting I'm going to go down to, and that's under settings down here. And we're going to look at the Microsoft 365 Defender one. This is a little confusing. Just their naming conventions are a little confusing, but this is where the email notifications are, okay? And you can add email notifications here. You want to make sure that you put an email address in here to get notified when incidents are created. And I won't go through the rules here, but you want to at least have this and enable your features here. The other thing in here is under email and collaboration. There's this priority account protection. Again, this is an advanced feature you check and turn on, and then you can manage who your priority counts are and assign members to it. So let me go back over here. Let me cancel this. Let's see if I got priority counts and edit this. Oh, I don't have any members in here. So let's add myself in here. So Mike, okay. And add and next. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to put a higher level of scrutiny on anything coming to me. So people you want to put in here, anyone on your public website, CEO, any of your high-level executive team, and anyone that has access to bank accounts or can move money, put in here. So there you go. There's that one. And the next thing I'll show you back up here is under, let's see, we want to go to review. And this is where you're going to see the quarantine stuff. And this is where quarantines are checked. Now, a user, when they receive their quarantine notification at the end of the day, this is where they're going to come to, but it's going to be in their user context. They'll be able to see their stuff here in this list. Now, something about this list that I'll talk about in this quarantine reason column over here. You can see these 4 that say fish on it that have been stopped and needs review. And they were picked, and it tells you which policy picked it up, the anti-spam policy. So I would receive a notification at the end of the day that these got caught by this, the filter. I got this my quarantine notification, and I can come here and I can look and I can see why. As an administrator, you can also see all of this, and you can see it for every single user. But what a user will not see, they will not receive in their quarantine notification anything that Microsoft classifies as high confidence spam or high confidence phish. They will show up to the administrator in this console, but they will not show up to the end user. So something to note and pay attention to. And then you'll also notice over here there's files. So any files that have gotten quarantined through the Safe Attachments feature, whether it be in a OneDrive or an email or a Team or SharePoint, it's going to show up here and get quarantined here. And if you remember back a little bit earlier, that send quarantine attachments to a particular mailbox, well, you may not need it because here it will be, right? If you want it, actually, I take that back. Here it will not be. I'm sorry. So scratch what I just said. This is for SharePoint OneDrive stuff, not email. Email is a different beast. And then you have things like Explorer, where you can kind of see what's been going on, how the system's been handling things, and whether it be malware or phish or campaigns. And here's another nice built-in feature: is you can do education campaigns with the attack. You can have an attack simulation campaigns. Microsoft has pre-built simulations, so if you're familiar with KnowBe4 and those types of training phishing kind of campaigns, Microsoft has that same capability right here. Use it. And the campaigns are over here. You can launch run credential harvest simulation and send it out to all your users. And if someone bad clicks it, Microsoft sends them over to a training thing, and you'll be able to see all of that activity here. And then investigations. So this is the active stuff from an investigation perspective. Obviously nothing here right now, but there you go. That is the high level Exchange Online Protection, now Defender for Office 365, and its advanced features. And there's really, really, really cool stuff in there. Go ahead and use it. Like I said, Microsoft gets trillions of emails a day. They probably get more emails than anyone else. And they've got great AI that takes care of most all threats. Very few things get through to their blue team up in Redmond. And then, use the quick standard startup. Go fast. Just go do it. So if you like this video, please subscribe. And if you want to see more things, let me know what you want to see. Whether it be in the Microsoft 365 security realm, or whether it be in Azure, like Defender for Cloud and that kind of stuff. I'm more than happy to walk you through anything that you might want to look at. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.